Well. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Waking up for a little bit of a later morning over here in Tallinn, Estonia, as we fly over the beautiful old town, as you can see in the background. Absolutely stunning. And of course, we got plenty to talk about with Bitcoin moving in the overnight hours. Looking at me like there are a few massive trade ideas staring us in the face. And more importantly, I just figured out that, or perhaps not as important, depending upon your disposition, but I've just figured out if I drop something near my computer, it just shuts off, and then you have to do like a full-on factory reset. So again, another reason why this video is coming out a little bit later. But of course, without further ado, want to be wishing you the best, the happiest of the happiest. And let's talk about some goddamn magic internet money, as the teleportation has been initiated. And there it is, Bitcoin in all of his red dildo glory over the last few hours. And realistically, this was a clear and defined area that we had marked off on the lower time frames. This blue box territory right over here. Remember last night when we were talking on the live stream, which Bitcoin, I'd actually just bought Bitcoin at that point, right around the 8,400-ish level. We did get a nice move up to about 8,600. Sorry. Came down to 8,300, which is where I bought, then popped up to about 8,600. I actually went cash, I sold my position, took profits as soon as we came back down into this blue box territory. For full disclosure, for full transparency, just coming in right over here, average price on these June futures about 85.63 and running about 0.75 profit on Bitcoin, I guess. Not bad. Actually, just checked that right now on my streamer account, so happy with that. And of course, with my options positions, I actually ended up closing some of my 9,000 strike calls, just because that's all premium right now. In fact, I'll end up closing the rest relatively soon, and I'll be rolling them onto this 8250 of strike right over here. And again, that's just the beauty of options. And of course, with that said, I will be looking to cover my position relatively soon as well, and overall, that's what I'm thinking as far as the lower time frames go. But with this advent of this, of this little dump or big dump, depending upon again your disposition, the picture has changed a little bit, and I do believe that we have fully confirmed that we have put in a local top now. Obviously, this was spoken about yesterday, and this is always going to come off as like a hindsight type thing, of which sometimes there's some very interesting folks just commenting like, this is hindsight trading. It's like, well, no, we talk about these things in advance so that, because we're not going to be on fucking live stream the whole time, right? We got to have a life too. And of course, and bless you also over there. And of course, this was, as I said before, this was initiated once we lost this 8,400 support right over here, then again confirmed below 8,250, which we spoke about last night, and then more importantly, going over on here into the weekly, the kind of final nail in the coffin, I suppose you could say, was taking out the prior weekly low, which is something that we haven't done in quite literally, three or so months, ever since late March over here. But more importantly, I mean, realistically, there hasn't been even like a legitimate, takeout of the prior weekly of the prior weekly low since really, beginning of February, late January over here. So this is the first time that we've really seen, a pretty nasty pullback, I suppose you could say. And I do think that it's likely to go down further over time. I think that we will be testing some major supports, and the three areas that are and the three areas that will be is this first and foremost is 7,200-ish area right over here, which is the 3-day 200 simple moving average. I do believe that is an area of significant interest to myself. I would at the very least be looking for a bounce in that region, and more importantly, probably going to be putting a little bit of my actual trading account back into the market if and when we do get down around there. Of course, that's not it's not a 100% done deal that it's 100% gonna hold up and bounce this bitch back on up to 100,000 billion price per Bitcoin. If this area does fail, then we can start to talk about a much more deep retracement down into the low 6,000s to upper 5,000s. And that is my next big area where I'd be looking to bring in some of my main account as well. If this area does fail, then we got some actual real problems, as 4,200 is kind of like the last line of defense. But again, am I leaning towards this actually going all the way down there? No, I'm not at all. I just want to describe these areas and the relation that they have, because again, when it comes down to that to that conversation, which I completely understand of people thinking, oh, this is hindsight trading and all that kind of stuff, and I 100% understand that. We have to describe these situations beforehand. Again, not because I don't think that those people are really going to be listening anyways, but for the people who actually do happen to, give a fuck, I suppose you could say, or actually make an effort, these things need to be predefined, just like we predefined, 8450 or 8500 last night, then 8250, and then 8000, all getting hit in succession and in trades being initiated off of all those areas. And again, that's just the prior planning. So, I like to make this analogy as well. When we're talking about trading, very, very rarely do things actually happen in the moment. Most of the time, these things are predefined, and I like to think of back in my days of playing baseball, where we'd always be when I was learning, we'd always be asking ourselves, if the ball comes to me, where do I throw it? Well, this is basically the same thing that we're doing in charting right over here. If price action goes here, what do I do? And these things, very rarely actually, I mean, you can see these things from a mile away typically, unless if like some very unique situation comes in the market, which does certainly happen. But more importantly, I do want to describe that I would be looking to buy this pullback. However, not exactly right here. I do think that we go lower, to be 100% clear. We do have a golden cross on the 3-day dollar time frame, which the last time that we had one was back on over here in 2014, 2015, when Bitcoin was kind of turning the corner and led into about a 3-year rally. Now, just because we had a 3-year rally, does that mean that we can't have pretty nasty pullbacks? Of course we can, and that's what I think that we're probably going to initiate right now. So that is telling me that the longer term trend is to the upside, so I should be looking to buy a dip. But buying a dip, is, whether it's at 8,000 or all the way down at 7,000, or perhaps even all the way down at 6,000, those are significantly different paths, right? So when it comes down to it, that's my general disposition. I'll be trying out positions along those major areas that we just spoke about. As far as this goes, I do want to go over the weekly just for a second here, because the weekly is quite cut and dry. We did close a doji dodo right over here, right outside the top 200 bands, although, as you can see, we popped back up yesterday night and retested the top, rejected from it, and then took out the low of the prior weekly dodo. That to me is pretty damn confidence inducing that we have put in a local top here, and we will work our way, again, depending upon your disposition on about what I'm about to say, much lower, at least for, as far as the macro view goes. When it comes down to it, I do think that 7,200 is extremely likely to get hit at some point. 7,200, 7,250, somewhere right around here. This would also fill the gap on the CMEs back from, I think it was like May 19th or something like that. May 17th, actually, going all the way back here a few weeks ago. And I would be looking for a bounce in that region, not just mashing up with this gap, but also, as we just spoke about, the 3-day 200 simple, which is this white moving average right here, which has proven to be a pretty damn staunch moving average as far as the historical moves of Bitcoin go. When Bitcoin lost it over here, bad. When Bitcoin regained it over here, good. And you do see that once Bitcoin regained it, it actually did retest it a couple times. And the third time that it retested it, that was the big bad buy. And could that be what we're looking at right here? Maybe, maybe not. Again, a little bit too early to decide such things. I'd like to give it a little bit more breathing room. And more importantly, I do want to look at something that we've been looking at for the past month and a half, and that is a 3-day jewel. And the 3-day jewel is actually, at the current moment in time, flirting around with a breakdown below the pink oscillator right here, which is very important, because my general idea before was that we were probably going to walk the light blue up into the more critical zone and set up for a pretty nasty, 30 to 40% pullback. Well, the thing is that if we actually close below here later tonight, or sorry, I guess this is already confirmed. Yes, this is already confirmed. We just got a new tick on this last night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, or sorry, 2 nights ago on the 3rd. So fair enough. Then I would be looking for this to actually initiate the pullback from here. Now, because we didn't see the light blue get so deep into this more critical territory around an 88 to 90-ish read, I don't expect the same 30 to 40% retracement that we spoke about before. I think it's more likely that we'll see somewhere in between about 10 to 15%, which would, from top to bottom land us around, I believe, actually around the 200 simple. That's about 20%. So again, you do see the light blue getting deeper into this critical territory than the last run, which produced about an 11% retracement. And then this guy right over here, which was our other kind of shallower one, or actually right around it. But both of them kind of within that range between about 10 to 15%. And if we do line up for something like that, I kind of would be on that side, and that would match up with this area right around here. So I do like that overall, actually. Looking at 3-day Stokes, they're actually still up right now, although any sort of a move down from here, I imagine they will cross back down to the downside. More importantly, we do see 2-day Stokes headed down, and they will actually be hitting this trend line right here. And while I do think that it might have an initial reaction of a little bit of a bounce, we are getting pretty mature within this formation, and I do think that it's more likely that we're likely to break this to the downside and probably head back below this critical zone, which again probably going to align with a move down to the yellow 21 exponential moving average, which actually has confirmed bearish divergence on here. And usually my play is that we come down to the yellow 21, which would be lining up with this dotted trend line right here. And you do see that that is right around that 7250-ish area, which would line up with that gap on CMEs and also our 3-day 200 simple moving average. So I really like the confluences right there. I'm sure that we do have bearish divergence on the 3-day as well confirmed. Yes, we do. 1, 2, 3, getting rejected by the exponential, and this one would actually suggest that we go a little bit lower. But I do think, if we were to get like a wick into the yellow 21 on the 3-day, but still close above the 200 simple, that would be pretty much perfect as far as I'm concerned, especially with the golden cross kind of happening as of a couple of ticks ago. I do think that is, it's going to be an area of high interest for a lot of bots and algos to be buying along this area. So I would at the very least be looking for an extremely strong bounce. And again, the trend is your friend until the end of the trend, and all time frames are still technically in an uptrend right now. We haven't really made lower highs or lower lows just yet. So while I do think that we have some downside here, don't get me wrong, I do want to accurately describe my general disposition on Bitcoin, as I'll be looking to essentially be buying a dip as long as we're above 5,500, this area right around here. I don't really see any reason not to. Again, that doesn't mean that I just blindly put in buy orders right here. No, fuck no. There are very clear and defined areas. First things first, about 7,200. If that area fails, then I'll kind of aim my cannons a little bit lower, down into the low 6,000s, high 5,000s, and then we'll reassess from there. But for right now, Bitcoin just taking its time. This probably, it's probably gonna, it's not gonna happen overnight or anything like that. But I do believe that we have our top in place. And looking at the daily right over here, obviously bearish divergence on the daily, historical volatility percentile getting really, 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 really red, which is typically where you put in your highs and lows when it comes to trading assets. And more importantly, we do see that. Well, we do have actually the 50 exponential moving average coming in right around that same area that we just spoke about. So a lot of things converging around that first point of interest around 7,200. Now, if we go to the lower time frames, there's obviously going to be more contingencies with that. But I wanted to I wanted to first and foremost cover up the higher time frames. Now, lower time frames, 4 hour probably does want to come down for a wick to 75.50-ish area. I think we already got down to about, what was it? About 77.18 and a half. It looks like on Mexico. So overall, I do think that we have a little bit probably, in the lower time frames, a little bit more downside. Any sort of a bounce back up to the 8,200-ish area, I would be looking to be a seller, and that is why I actually did roll these options positions to the next strike. And as you did see, I did take profit on these 9,000 strike calls as well. So still running, a decent amount. And actually probably put a little bit more on these 8250 strikes if we do if we do bounce a little bit higher. Very easy to cover and a very obvious horizontal right here as well. So extremely easy trade to manage. And if we break back above 8250, just buy some of the spot underlying, because we're probably going actually a lot higher if that would happen. Now, I'm not leaning towards that happening, but of course, onto the conversation of hindsight trading. If this were to happen, that would be my reaction. That would be my response to price action. So right now, I don't feel too confident that Bitcoin actually even gets back around that area. Just if Bitcoin were to get around that area, I'd probably be looking to take to probably add. More importantly, I do think that we probably bounce back up, maybe somewhere around 8,100 to 8,150, somewhere in this region right around here. Let me put in a nice horizontal so I can keep myself a little bit accountable. There we go, about 8,150 a share. We'll call it, give or take a few bucks. And if Bitcoin does come back around there, yes, I'd probably be looking to add a little bit as well. Now, lower time frames probably are going to be printing some sort of bullish divergence, aren't they? Yep, we do see hourly printing some bullish divergence on the lows so far. And, does it, technically, usually I'd be looking up around about 8,200, but I don't want to get too aggressive here. I mean, we just went through about a 4-month straight uptrend, and this is our first major pullback that is actually destroying some structural things from the higher time frames. So I do think that it's appropriate to be a little bit more defensive in this region. region rather than aggressive. So again, when it comes down to that, if you are trading lower time frames, that's what I'd be thinking right around there. I do think that we probably have a nice bounce off the 75.50ish range on the lower time frames. Probably bounce back up to like 78, maybe even 79, and then we probably resume further downside to that 7200ish level over time. Remember, we're talking about longer terms of price action here. We do see 4-hour Stochs actually getting quite down there right now, so fair enough. They still do have a little bit room to go, but they have been pretty damn accurate at getting the overall action of Bitcoin. We do see hourly Stochs actually wanted to cross up here, so I do think that's probably, if you really wanted to nail it down, very low time frames, probably next move is a bounce up. But I do think that bounce up does get rejected, and I would certainly be on the more defensive side, on the more bearish side, as long as we remain below 8250. 8250 is that strong pivot from the medium and higher time frame perspective, that as long as Bitcoin's below it, it's time to be defensive, time to be looking to pull in those profits if you've been long these last 3 or 4 months. So again, that's what I'd be saying about that. However, medium and higher time frames, I do think resume that resume more down after a little bit of a bounce up, as long as 8250 is not taken out to the upside. If 8250 remains untaken by the bulls, I'm still looking for some more downside. Let's see, 8-hour right over here. What do we see on the 8-hour? 8-hour Stochs actually having a fresh cross down. What about 10-hour? 10-hour probably going to be the same. Yes, we do see the same thing. 12-hour straight down as well. And again, not really too much else to report on something like this. Just looking at our RSI right over here, we are dipping down into the bearish control zone for the first time in a very, 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 very long time, actually. So I do think that, again, after a little bit of a bouncy bounce on the lower time frames, probably do resume some more downside. Looking at the daily, we do see daily Stochs headed just straight nosedive. What I do want to see from today's daily close is I want to see if we close above or below this yellow 21. If we close below, which I think is... do I think it's likely or not? I don't think it matters if I think it's likely or not, but if we do close below it, I would be looking for the next move down, probably later this week or something like that, to at the very least 7,500 and in likely 7250-ish area. What else do we got? Did we look at the 2-day? Yeah, we looked at 2-day. Again, 2-day 21 coming in right around 7250. We got 3-day right over here. Already looked at that. And then weekly, of course. Not really too much to be going off on the weekly, just off of horizontals. We do see a point of interest right around 7250 to 7300. So that's a little bit more long term of what I'm thinking. And we are probably going to see the weekly Stochs cross to the downside here. Yeah, they are hinting at a cross to the downside. I'd imagine that any close below 8,000 by end of week will initiate a cross to the downside. And again, this is the area that a lot of tops in Bitcoin have been called. It really doesn't like to stay in this area for too much longer, historically speaking. This is certainly a little bit more of an outlier. So that would imply actually that the pullback probably is going to be a little bit more nasty. Over time, we do see that the red 10 symbol is going to be the first point of interest, but this is going to be rising quite rapidly on the weekly schedule. As last week it was, just to give you an idea of how quickly this one rises, last week it was 63.25, and then this week it is 6,700. So it's literally rising $300 per tick. And if we put in another tick here, then that's going to bring it up to about 7,000, and that's going to really align with that 200 simple on the 3-day, which we were looking at before. So again, Bitcoin actually taking a little bit of the southern road right now, as we do see 78.75, and probably going to reach back down to towards these lows. And do I think that we bounce around there? Probably do try a little bit of a bounce attempt on the lower time frames, but still overall weak right now. 78.65 tick right there. And again, medium to higher time frames, I would be bearish on, to be quite clear. Probably by the time that I post this video, that'll be likely likely already playing out. Let's see, what else do we have, man? What else do we have? I do want to check out Gbtc really quick. How's he doing? Gbtc actually initiating the top a little bit more precisely, to be fair. Did put in a nice doji doodle right at the actual top, and then just continuation ever since. I do think that Gbtc comes down to about 987. And probably a little bit low over time. We do see daily Stochs on Gbtc coming down. Weekly, again, major rejection, closing out a couple weeks ago, and last week, and then this week having some more continuation. So to me, that is, again, kind of confirmed. so to speak. Let's go check out CMEs right over here. CMEs, same thing. We finally have taken out the low side of a wick of a prior weekly dildo, and we do see weekly Stokes wanting to cross to the downside as well. And more importantly, let's see where the top trolling bands are coming in on this guy. Yeah, we are going to be, we are going to likely be heading I shouldn't say much lower, but lower over time. This one would suggest that we actually have a little bit more downside. Looking at the daily right over here, we are going to bounce off the yellow 21 exponential moving average. We do see the red 10 symbols are right around 8,200. So again, that's kind of the range that I'd be looking at. And overall, I'd be looking to short anywhere right around the red 10 symbol from that time frame perspective. If we do break the 21, which is 76, and yes, I do think that we come all the way down at the very least to 7,200, and then we'll kind of reassess from there. But remember, the big news here, or perhaps not the big news, but the thing that I'd be most cognizant of is this gap right over here from the 17th of May. I do think that we have a nice bounce right around there, and then we'll kind of reassess. But here's the thing, a lot of people are looking for that now, so it does offer up the potential for some factory, and but also, also a pretty damn easy trade to manage. Anywhere below 7,000, it's time to get the fuck out. Okay, cool. Let's see. So we looked at the daily, looked at the 4 hour. Yeah, overall, CMEs over here look to me like they want to have a little bit more downside. In fact, if I was just looking at CMEs, we are resting on the blue 377 exponential on the hourly. So yeah, probably do try a little bit of a bounce up here. 8,100 would be resistance as far as this time frame is concerned. So again, if I had a little bit of balls and if I wanted to scalp right now, I might consider a small move like that. What about about $100, $200, something like that. But again, I don't think that's don't really want to be taking positions right now. I want to be looking for more longer term. I want to be looking for those major buys, which are again significantly lower. So I do want to play the long game on Bitcoin, but I know a lot of people here looking at the shorter time frames as well, the crack trader time frames, which is fair enough. It's all valid. And so that's kind of what I'd be thinking here. Probably does pop back up and test around 8,000 to 8,100-ish area, and then we'll and then we'll kind of figure out if this is for real or not. But so far, pretty nasty move right there. Let's go check out the other top shitcoins. How are they faring right now? We see Mr. Butyrol right over here. Ooh, damn, Mr. Butyrol getting absolutely shreked over here. We do see it's actually still maintaining above the blue 377. I do have a difficult time being bearish on this until we actually fully confirm below the yellow 21 and more preferentially the blue 377. Both very important, especially from that time frame perspective. Looking at just looking at it from a long-term perspective, saying that hey, we do still have the golden cross on right over here. So my rule is I'm not really short on anything that hasn't officially broken the 21 just yet. Looking at the weekly, have we taken out the prior weekly low, 239, spot 86? Yes, we have. We certainly have. And again, structural support for Mr. Butyrol would actually be down around 210-ish region to 215, I believe. Yeah, somewhere right around this region. I mean, 220 is going to be a point of interest if we do actually break down. But again, it's going to come into it's going to really depend on what Bitcoin does, right? This one's likely to follow. Lower than that, about $200. But for now, looking quite nasty here. To me, what does the lower time frames look like? Yeah, it looks basically the same as Bitcoin. Actually, looks like it wants to take a little bit of a move right here. But do I want to be trading against the hourly jewel? Well, it's not really given a full-on perfect long signal, so I would say no. Especially when trading counter trend, I do not want to. I certainly do not want anything but a perfect signal. So yeah, as far as that goes, structural support down around 210, we'll call it, and 220 are the points of interest here. Obviously, does need to fully confirm below about 240 first. If we can close this next 4-hour dildo below. Would it be 240 or would we look at this area right over here at 235? This one's a little bit more difficult. I think it's more appropriate to be looking at Bitcoin right now. But I do think that, obviously if Bitcoin has some downside, this one's going to have some downside as well. And again, from a longer term perspective, 210 and about 220 are the areas of interest I'd be having. Litecoin looks to me like it wants to take a little bit of a leg down to about 96 or about $97. Looking a little bit more bearish than the other ones. Weekly 10 symbol coming in right around $91, so I would be looking for a bounce longer term from there. And daily, what does a daily look like? Yeah, daily looks like it wants to have a little bit of a leg down as well. We do see daily Stokes headed straight down. We do see daily RSI losing its luster as well. So to me, I do think that while typically speaking on lower timeframes, you would look for a bounce in this region. Overall, medium and higher timeframes, I would be looking for continuation of trend, or sorry, continuation of this dump, likely into the mid to low 90s. Again, points of interest right around 95 and about 91 from a higher time frame perspective. Let's go check out what Cardano's doing over here versus the good old Krown. And again, do I think that's still bottoming? Probably still bottoming. You know, as long as this thing maintains about 1,000 satoshis on a weekly, it's okay. It's really sloppy, but we see the same formation in just about all of the alts. You don't even have to look at the name here. It's going to be just about most alts, not all, but most. And they look something like this. And I'd still say the same thing. They probably are bottoming out, going to be put in some sideways, but a sideways to slightly down Bitcoin probably going to benefit some of these alts versus Bitcoin. Versus dollar, however, probably not so much, which we'll check out in just a second, or as we just saw with what's it called, Ethereum and Litecoin, not so much. Looking at BNB, again, doing the same thing that Bitcoin's doing. Doji Dildo at the top and taking out the low of that. I do think that we have some more downside here as well, probably down to about 20, what is this, like $27, something like that. Looks about right. What about the week? Where's weekly support? Weekly support's all the way down at $25.50. So longer term, I do think that it's likely that we do make our way down there. Shorter term time frames probably have a leg down to $28.50 before a nice little bounce on those shorter time frames. But overall, everything's kind of moving in lockstep, right? Zcash, same thing right over here, probably moving its way down to a little bit more aggressive to the downside, actually, down towards $78. Yeah, daily's going to be bouncing off the yellow 21 for now, though. Again, I do have a difficult time getting bearish on this until we actually fully break 79.25. Have we closed any 4 hours below there? We have not. Yeah, if we could maybe close a 4 hour below 79.25, then yes, I'd feel appropriate to get bearish down to this next level, 76.5 and then 72.5 over time. But for right now, still a little bit premature for that, at least in my opinion, to be taking trades. Bcash over here, obviously doing the same exact shit as well. Has actually officially broken the yellow 21, and I do think that we make our way down to about 355, 360-ish area. Looking at the weekly here, weekly support right around about 350. So 350 to 360 is the areas that I'd be looking for, and probably do have a nice balance around that area. Tron Cash, I would have viewed this as, as a nice buying opportunity right here on that last wick down. Call me crazy, man, but I actually don't hate this chart that much. It's okay. Yes, we do have some bearish divergence, but I think it's mostly played out. We had a nice, what is this? This is a fucking massive move here. Yeah, about a 20% move down to the 21, and I wouldn't be bearish on this one until we actually break this area fully. This area being 3.13 cent. Neo Cash, what's Neo doing? Breaking the 21, so looking like he wants to come down to about $11.50 to me. Let's see what the weekly looks like. Yeah, weekly support is going to be right around that region, a little bit slightly lower, perhaps 11.35 area, but I would be looking for a bounce in that region. EOS probably looking for a bounce around the 5.97 region, $6-ish region. Yeah, daily probably comes down to about 6.13-ish area, so anywhere between 6.10 and 5.95 is where I kind of be looking for this one. What else we got, man? What else we got? Ripple Me Nipples over here, and similar thing to what was the other one that we just looked at? Maybe it was EOS. But coming down to the yellow 21 exponential moving average, as we just saw right over here, and I can't get bearish on it, especially with a golden cross like we have over here, as long as we're above the yellow 21. Now, if we can confirm below 40 cents end of day on a closing basis, or even below 40 cents on like a maybe make that 39 cents on like a 4 hour dildo close, I have a hard time getting more bearish, but we do see weekly supports actually coming in all the way down here around 37 cents. Although I'm not necessarily intent on that. I'm not quite intent on that happening. In fact, looking at the weekly, I mean, I'd actually be looking for a bounce in this region right here. I have a hard time getting bearish on this one as well. Needs to break this area first before I can get bearish on it, and then we could talk about a move down into the 37 to 36 cent region. For right now, I don't think it's appropriate. Monero, ooh, nasty. Actually, Monero looks like it wants to come down as well. If Monero fails to close today above 87, anywhere above 87, I'm going to be looking for a move down to 80.25. It looks like, looking at the weekly, Yeah, weekly support all the way down at about 78 bucks or 77 and a half, longer term. So I would be looking for a move, likely down around there. Stellar coming back down to weekly support. Some of these ones actually do look different today, which is really interesting. Now on the daily, if Stellar does come down to about 11 and a quarter cent, I'd actually really like that. I would be looking for a nice bounce there. We do see daily SOS crossing back to the downside, so I do think that it does have a chance to get down around there. But this would still, in my opinion, likely be a buy. I do think that this one is putting in a bottoming formation. We do see lower time frames, more appropriately right around 11.8 is where I'd be looking towards. So again, I do think that overall, probably an opportunity until we actually break 11.8. I wouldn't be looking for like significant downside. Now, if we do break 11.8, then we can talk about a move down back to 10 cent, maybe even single digits. But for right now, still a little bit further away. Let's go check out traditional markets. Traditional markets, very bearish right now. We've been bearish on these for a while, and I'd still be bearish on them. And I do think that longer term, based off the monthly, especially the way that we closed this last monthly as a bearish engulfing, probably do head down towards about 269. Looking at the daily right over here, putting in a little bit of a what do you want to call it, spinning bottom, doji low on decent volume on the bottom so far. Are we looking for a bounce just yet? I'd say this one's pretty easy to trade. I do think, personally speaking, I would be looking for a bounce off this, but I don't feel too damn confident, to be honest with you. And the reason why I say that is just because it's been very sloppy. Now, if we do have a bounce, you'll know by something just quite simple. If we do even just trade above 275.5 bucks, and yes, I would be looking for a bounce back up to about 277.5, 278ish area, somewhere right around here would look fine to me. But for right now, little bit iffy. It's a higher time frames that I feel quite confident on, and we've been bearish on for a while. Right here, right now, on the lower time frames. Does this want to bounce or not? It looks to me like it probably wants to bounce. We have some bullish divergence coming off the lower time frames, but yeah. Again, realistically for traditional markets, I'd be looking for a bounce anywhere into the higher 270s, maybe even low 280s, and that's where I'd be looking to put on some more long-term positions, perhaps. Anyways, with that said, let's get back on over to Mr. Bitcoin, wrap this bitch up as Bitcoin, again, to kind of summarize what we're looking at, putting back on the drawing tools right over here. I do think that Bitcoin probably does want to try a bounce relatively soon, probably back up to the 8,000 to 8,100ish region, and at that point in time, we'll figure out if this if this dump is for real or not. I do believe that we have some further downside based off the medium and the higher time frames, and I do think that leads ultimately down to probably around 7,200 over time. It's not happening today or tomorrow though, but over time, very likely. And at that point, we'll kind of reassess and probably still going to have the same sort of views. As far as the lower timeframes go, however, I would say this very adamantly that as long as Bitcoin's below 8,250, I am overall short and I suppose medium term timeframe bearish. Looking for a continuation down to those lower targets that we spoke about. If Bitcoin were to regain 8,250, then yes, I do think it works its way back up to 8,500 and probably beyond, and I wouldn't be bearish anymore. But again, I'm not really leaning towards that happening. What I think is more likely here is continuation of trend. It looks to me like we have our top in. I think it's pretty. I think it's pretty fucking obvious now. We did actually initiate. To be fair to the bears, we did actually initiate this rising wedge to the downside. And that does have a measure move pointing all the way down a little bit further south, actually, all the way to about 7,450 to 7,550-ish area, which we got pretty damn close to already, about 7,700 even on GDAX. So again, probably does get hit, and I would be looking for a bounce off this area in the lower time frames, and then probably a little bit more continuation down to that 7,200-ish area that we just spoke about at the beginning of this video. Anyways, with all that said, been an absolute pleasure to speak with you on this lovely Tuesday morning over here from Tallinn, Estonia. I'll be back on later with some more live stream action. I do have to remind myself that first and foremost, holy shit, forgot to talk about it again. All my programs are on sale for the rest of the week until Friday with the code. If I can bring it up over here, come on, code, where are you? There you are. With the code 20K20 and then a capital K. And I want to briefly explain them just for a second here. The technical analysis program is a 35-hour plus long program that is all encompassing not just technical analysis but position management, risk management, and to understand underlying market dynamics. And of course, that is really designed for people who want to take this in a more serious manner and do this typically as a living, because not only is it 35 hours long, but you're probably going to want to watch it multiple times. And for most people, it's just not reasonable, right? So make sure that you take advantage of the free material first. That's going to basically get most people most of the way of which they want to be. If that's not enough for you, if you view that and you still want more, then perhaps consider it. Definitely read the reviews. The options program is similar to that, except with regards to the derivative products options. So it's a little bit more advanced, but a completely different trading style. So understand that is, you're probably going to want to master a little bit of technical analysis first. Do you need to know technical analysis to trade options? Actually, no, but it'll help. And then the Joule indicators are quite literally just access to the Joule indicators, nothing else. So it's more like, instant gratification. But I would say, if you're not already profitable, probably it's not a magic pill is what I'm trying to say. So again, do you want to get that out there? Of course, 20,000 people in this community now. So that is so I just want to say massive thank you for that. And I will be back on later tonight. But timing might be a little bit difficult just because I will be doing an interview with another channel about an hour before my live streams, or an hour before the typical live stream time. So I'll try to manage time well in that, and I'll let you know if it's going to be starting a little bit later, a little bit earlier, or whatever it ends up being. Anyways, with that said, do want to wish you well and take care. See you soon.